Okay, we are here with my next guest on the Teflon Tales. Hi, Fei. Good to see you.
Hey, Ashwin, so good to be here.
Thank you for joining me. So, for people who are joining for the first time, the Teflon Tales is really showcasing individuals who are living the Teflon life. And really, what is a Teflon life? If you draw the analogy, it gets hot very quickly, it gets cool very quickly. It remains non-sticky and highly versatile, right? So enough cannot be said about these qualities being more relevant than ever now. So welcome, Faye, and let's get started.
Yeah, so great to be here. I'm finally got to do this with you virtually, but I met you, I remember through Dory Clark
Yeah.
a couple of years ago. It was super exciting to do that in person and then to see you again now.
Okay, so you start off with somebody that I know both you and I hold in high esteem, which is Dory Clark, and uh, part of that journey for me also was ending up in a place where I wanted to kind of explore beyond my four walls, if you will, and that's how I ended up going to Dory Clark's recognized experts, and like you mentioned, that's how you and I met.
Hmm.
Um, I'm going to talk about something that you've been public about. You put it up on phaseworld.com, which is your website,
Yeah.
and that's your journey, right?
Mhm.
And I'm going to read this, right? It started out with coming to the US when you were 17 with $3,000 in cash, not quite knowing whether you're going to go back to
Yeah.
your homeland or not. And then you talk about not having the ice rink in the backyard with some of the other privileged kids did, and yet ended up taking on the mantle as the captain of the ice hockey team.
Yeah, the boys team, yes.
Okay, I missed that piece. Okay, captain
No,
of the
no,
boys team.
not
Um,
important. Yeah.
and then moving to Taekwondo,
Hmm.
going through grad school, being a project manager, learning programming, 10 years in corporate America, and then launching the Phase World podcast back in 2014, way before podcast became the in thing. And along the way, you've obviously embodied a lot of the Teflon characteristics. So walk us through like that's an amazing journey. But what were some of the points that caused you to kind of hit pause, speed up, slow down, not get burnt out? Everything that we want to be chatting with.
Yeah, thanks for this question. So grateful because I think a lot of us, especially during the pandemic, are on the verge of, burnout, really, without
Yeah.
you even realizing it, or realizing it but not sure what to do about it. And I think for me, those touch points you talked about, I had a very different mentality. I think when I was 17, because I realized that when we're that age, I'm not sure about you, Ashwin, you feel sort of invincible in a way.
Yeah.
You feel like you're okay, you get injured, you recover, and you're going to go to school, you're going to do great work, and there's like infinite energy inside of you, even though you're physically, your physical condition is telling you like this is not really sustainable. But I basically just kept going. And
Mhm.
I'm not sure if I always love that about myself, but I always like to be challenged, feel challenged, be of contribution. Even today, I look at my projects. People say, "What is it? Is this money related? What is the impact related?" And we try to be very honest, very transparent about that.
Yeah.
So for me, it always has to be both. It can't just be one or the other. But I think for me to hit the pause button sometimes is to try to learn to meditate, try to pay attention to what's happening. And then journaling, meditation. I have my own way. I usually meditate at night, like before I go to sleep, to listen to
Mhm.
certain music. So that's kind of how I manage my life.
So you mentioned something about impact versus business related. So I'm going something about your again going back to LinkedIn. Um, and I promised to bring this up during the show, which is part of the reason I'm even doing LinkedIn Live, right? And
Mm.
is you gave me the permission to do it, and let me explain how. You have these amazing short videos that you have put up on LinkedIn, right, for many months right now,
Oh,
talking
wow.
about live streaming, talking about hey what, and for me it was like, oh, I mean, so here's somebody that I trust and believe in, and she's demystifying the whole process for me. So once I did get accepted to LinkedIn Live, it was like, I'm going to give it a shot, right? So,
Mhm.
and again, I want to come back full circle to this, right? Because the idea of not just being Teflon like yourself, which is getting hot, but and not waiting to hit that perfection, but along the way giving back so that others can start their journey too, right?
Yeah.
How did that light bulb moment happen for you? Was there kind of mentors along the way? Was there a source of inspiration that gave you that courage to do what you're doing?
Yeah, a lot of mentors along the way. It's funny, when I was 19, I went to Tony Robbins' event, had a VIP ticket. That to me was a huge deal. My partner encouraged me to do that. And to be honest, a year later, I said, he's a little bit too macho for me. I need someone with a slightly different voice and intention. That's how Seth Godin entered my life. And from Seth Godin, of course, years later, I met Dory Clark, but, Michael Roderick, who I interviewed recently, BJ Miller from Palliative Care. There are just so many mentors from different walks of life. And as a result, my podcast called Phase World Podcast started in 2014 was really about the ability to learn from everyone
Mm-hmm.
because I was 30 at the time. I thought to myself, I felt my corporate career was very limiting for me. That even though I was a project manager, I got to see everyone learn UX, design, development. I still felt there's something kind of insatiable, like something missing. So my podcast was a permission for myself to step out. And I think, Ash, there's a lot to talk about. Like I had a lot of hesitation being a woman, being an immigrant, and just realized, oh my God, English is not my first language. Like, do we have the permission to do that? If you're watching this, you're an immigrant. Yes, absolutely, 1,000%. I encourage you. And so fast forward to the pandemic, I started a YouTube channel also under Face World. So it's called Face World Media. I started publishing short videos on Zoom, how to help dance instructors, how to like really
Mm-hmm.
understand the advanced level of features of Zoom. I never thought they would go anywhere because I'm a digital marketer. To me, Zoom is such a just a tool that we use. That's
Right.
it. And I had my breakthrough video. And then fast forward, if this interests you anyway, I'm happy to answer any questions. After a couple of months of every Zoom video I published is like thousands, over 10,000, some 50, 70,000 views. I, again, wanted to be honest with myself as a content creator to say, where am I pivoting next? What am I actually doing to help people? So that became live streaming, building your own brand and your business, especially during COVID-19. And that's where all the live streaming videos came about. So I was literally learning, not an expert, learning as I go along, as someone in her 30s doing this for business, not for makeup, not for kitty stuff. So that I'm so glad. It makes me so happy today to hear that you took the leap and did it. And we're
So
here.
I have to show you. This is a good uh, college friend of mine, Ashish Pujari, right?
Oh,
Hey, so I'm assuming this is Faye's words that are inspirational. I'm just kidding.
yeah. Thank you.
So thanks for that, Ashish. So and this was something I was going to ask you anyway, and you've been public about this, right? Which
Mhm.
is you started podcasting in 2014, and you were and you mentioned this on LinkedIn. I almost quit podcasting 10 times.
Yeah. Yeah.
You had a full-time job and you wanted to become a full-time entrepreneur, and so the question is, and again, this is some of the challenges people have, right? Which is, if you don't get hot too quickly or you take too long,
Mm,
you become your own worst self-critic, and other people who are more Teflon like and are heating up quicker, and you start seeing them and comparing notes. So that inner critic, what you mentioned, right? Whether it's because you and I are immigrants, obviously you being a woman, has its own sets of biases that come along with it, and whatever the case may be, right? But I think getting past that inner self-critic is one thing, but again, talk a little bit about how you got past that break point of saying, okay, I'm going to continue doing this. And you and I talked about this, even what you and I are chatting right now. We
mm.
have people showing up. Here's another one, Jenny, right?
Hi,
um,
Jenny. Yay.
Good, another REXer. Hey, Jenny. So you and I were chatting about this, which is, there may be one person showing up in the
Mhm.
live stream. There may be nobody.
Mm,
There may be 100 people showing up, right? So being consistent and yet learning from every event and doing, how do you kind of balance that? Which is, you want to continue doing it, yet you want to pivot
mhm.
with data, right? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I it's so funny we're talking about this because just earlier today I started something called a podcaster and VA accelerator workshop. I've been running for 2 weeks now. Had a super fruitful conversation. I can't wait to share the video with you, Ashwin, and feel free to share with others who might find it helpful, and especially people who are watching this. I'll make sure to include a link in the comments once we're done going live. And I learned that once you start creating something on your own, and for me, that took many years, and that was back in 2014. At this point, I think there's a sense of like liberation. There's a sense of
Mm,
I really don't care who's showing up because I'm showing up for myself.
yeah.
If this work means so much to you, it doesn't matter what type of naysayers are out there, naysayers, and you want to keep going because it causes too much pain if you don't do it. I know, something that I realize I admit is sometimes I like to make other people's problems part of my own problems. But in helping resolving them, it gives me so much joy. And I really truly learn a whole lot along the way. So in terms of, let's talk about numbers and data for a second.
Huh?
I created some slides today. I literally went back to the beginning of May. Not that I've gone live for like the past few years. I only started going live streaming to multiple platforms, just got approved on LinkedIn. So I can really speak to Facebook, which is my personal profile, some groups that I run, and then a page that I run with fewer than 1,000 people.
Mm.
And I have a YouTube channel. There are a lot of people there, but not everybody's there to watch interviews, as I'm a Zoom and live stream person. So today I looked at it. So there's some really famous people, and I thought it will be tons of views, right? Sometimes not always so much. But then every once in a while, you hit someone who's like close to your heart. I'll use this example. His name is Robert Zeiland, who is a school, a psychologist, and he's, it's something that he truly cares about. He published a book. Many of you probably haven't heard of him, but when he and I went live to talk about like Asian parents and tiger moms,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought it will be such a niche audience within my space to actually tune in. And someone we both know, Jess, decided to share that episode, let live stream while we're going live to a Facebook group called Asian Hustle Network with about 10,000 people or so. And that one episode had more than 3,000 views by the time we ended live streaming. So it's like you got to ask yourself the numbers that you're paying attention to. And that might learn something totally counterintuitive. Just surprise yourself and have an open mind.
Yeah, and you mentioned something that I've felt that too, which is once you've figured out your why, right?
Mm.
Going back to Simon Sinek, which is again something that takes a lot of experimentation and failures, frankly, right? But then you're right. I mean, the critics, whether it's I mean, you're past that point of being your own self critic because you've got through that, and the world, to your point, really doesn't matter. I mean, the impact that you're having is whether it's one person or 10 people, that there is value that's being provided. And sometimes people are and I use the word especially now, distracted and overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So any email that I send, live streaming that we're doing, video conversations, it's all, hey, there's a distracted and overwhelmed audience.
Mm-hmm.
With that backdrop, how are you engaging with the world, right? So it's also a lot of learning along those lines. So the other aspect of, again, we talked a little bit about it, right, which is the how do you get past that initial kind of get through that phase of experimenting with something. I really can't believe that you started live streaming in May, and yet going back to, and people who haven't followed Fei, I highly encourage you to do so, because she comes up with these really short, small, consumable things. You talked about Zoom, you talked about streaming platforms, and it makes the other person, they feel less intimidated, right? To be able to. So, and I find that really awesome. But again, there are people who wait for perfection, and perfection, frankly, will never come, right? But how do you get to the point of saying good enough is good enough? I'm going to start giving back. And there are people out there who are sitting on the sidelines going to what Brené Brown says, right? You're in the arena. There are people on the sidelines in the audience who are going to make comments. And how do you kind of shut that off, knowing that, like you and I are talking about, even if you impacted one person and she or he have changed their life because of what you did, that's enough to silence the next 1,000 critics, right?
I mean, first of all, we are talking for the first time in 2 years.
Yes.
And I had no idea any of my video, if
Oh,
1 minute.
high impact.
If 1 minute of my video had this profound impact on you, I wouldn't even know if we didn't go live,
Yes.
right? So you're telling me this. So for anyone who's watching this, can you imagine? Just imagine for a second, the world is talking about you. Like three people in this world is talking about, they're talking about you because of your contribution. Maybe it's a blog post, maybe it's a YouTube video, maybe it's something that you posted on Instagram, that with your daily journal, something that you express. That is super meaningful. So I think number one, to know that there is no perfectionism. So
Yep.
just crush that, check it off the list. Number two is that we all know showing up is 99% of the time. We show up, I'm feeling a little thirsty. I got a flu shot and then my arm's a little sore, and there's always going to be something in the
Yeah.
way. But showing up really is 99% of it. I think the third thing is huge, which I never really thought about. And I learned this from someone else, is that you cannot be selfish about this because there are other people waiting to consume your content. And I never thought about this. Like, wow, I'm actually will be doing other people a disservice if
Exactly.
I just waited for perfection. If I didn't publish that video, that became what's called on the YouTube platform like a breakthrough video. The first video you see that's not 12 views or like 2 views or no comments. I had one video overnight with 700 views, and for the next 3 weeks, it was 1,000 views every single day. And today, it didn't break through 100,000, but it's huge. Now, I'll be completely honest with you. That breakthrough video is not the most proud, the best video I've ever done. I
Mhm.
highly, highly doubt it. In
Mhm.
fact, I can easily tell you which minute that there were glitches. It was not edited by my editor, it was done by me. I made a mistake, but YouTube wouldn't allow you to take it down. Now, not a single person pointed out at
Yeah.
2 minute mark there was a glitch. There was a black screen. I was so embarrassed knowing that it's there, but nobody cared. So chances are, is like, for example, right now I truly have a huge pimple on my face. I don't know why at this age it came up. I mean, you can see it. And I'm trying to, but nobody's actually going to see it. Now you do
Mhm.
because I pointed it out.
Yeah.
So be yourself, be authentic, knowing we're all here. We've all suffered as human beings. And we're all suffering together right now. And that's so powerful. So create something to help one other person out.
So powerful. And as you were mentioning, one of the reasons, and we were chatting about this before the go live button, is this is natural to me and
Mm,
it's natural to you. The imperfection,
mm,
sun coming over here, me wearing, feeling tired at the end of the day. That's what everybody goes through, right? So for me, having a edited video with post video editing, makeup, and all these, and I think the time there was a time for that, and I think maybe there's a niche that still accepts that, but people want imperfection, right? They want to be able to
mhm,
see the real you with everything, all the blemishes
mhm,
that come along with that. So and you mentioned, right, once you've gotten past that point of knowing, hey, Fei is making an impact,
mhm,
and you talked about the views and all that. So one of the things that I struggled with early on, and I think I've gotten past that, is how do I get to 1,000 views? How do I
mhm,
how do I out algorithm the LinkedIn algorithm? The first hour really matters when you so
mhm,
and there's lots of gurus out there talking about that, right? But it's sort of almost secondary.
yeah.
Yes, that thing matters, but if your post, like you said, if your post is powerful, if your video is powerful, the message is about giving,
Mhm.
you can out algorithm any algorithm, right? So talk a little bit about how does somebody wanting to get hot, but it's like, hey, I don't know what ingredients I'm going to put, but I just want to get hot, right? How do you get past the social pressure, if you will, of needing to succeed?
Needing to succeed. That's such a great way to look at it. I have so many examples that comes to mind. I lately have been using Sarah Cooper because everybody went from who is this girl to oh my gosh, she's everywhere. So lucky for me, I interviewed her years ago, and at the time she was she still is a comedian. She published these books that made me crack up, like how to be successful, how to lead like without hurting men's feelings. I mean, it's just like these amazing stories, but you never heard, you didn't hear from her at all. Like, who's this
Yeah.
person? And all of a sudden, just the right time at the right place. But her talent, really persists. And people now discover her. She's on every channel. She's a spokesperson for Slack. She has her own Netflix special. So my question is, I don't see her as a different person right now. She's precisely the person I met from 2 years ago. She's in the documentary. And all of a sudden, I use her as an example because you ought to realize that you are special. I mean, other people truly care about you to tell you that you're special. So what's holding you back? Unfortunately, is that you are holding yourself back. And I think like Seth Godin talks about this all the time. Dance, he talks about embrace emotional labor, dance with fear. What is that fear? That fear is I publish something that people are not gonna come and see it. And I'm really lucky to have experienced that in 2014. I remember the non-believers and people came to me. It's like, oh, your Faye's starting her own podcast. What an idiot. And I remember going to holidays I wrote an article, I think at some point, and to talk about how to talk about your podcast, whether it's it's a hobby or it's a profession that you have during holidays to your families, because they will not understand if you're not making money. For me, the podcast, the documentary, if people say, how much money do you make? That's almost always the first or second question people will ask. And it's hard to answer. It's like, what? If you don't make money or not enough money, what's the point? So it's really up to you. And then the last thing I will say, because I can talk about these things forever, I'm super passionate about it, is that you need a network. You need a nurturing network of people, a group of people. The Dory Clarks recognize the expert. Seth Godin has an LTMBE alumni. Michael Roderick started his own group called the Gate Group. I have my own creative entrepreneurs group. So, some of these are more exclusive, but if you're watching, listening to this, if you want to just check out the creative entrepreneurship group, I'll make sure to link below. Come join us, because once you see other people just like you, you'll feel very different. Because Ashwin, before talking to you, I had no idea you had any fear. I see you as extremely successful. I don't think this is, the things that we start talking before we went live, it's just comical. Like your comments from your mom's the same comments from my mom. My mom's like, why you always wear your hair the same way? It's like visually very fatigued. You just put your hair up or something. No, consistency actually matters. So our parents are giving us advice. Don't doubt yourself. Just go live. See how bad could it be, right? Have fun.
No, I mean it's so true, right? So two things that you mentioned that I want to emphasize again, right? And you and I are part of this amazing group, recognized experts. Dory Clark is the mind, the founder, the brains behind it. But that group, and I've told this to so many different people, right? And it's a group that I go to give and take, right? And I try to do more giving than taking, going back the same mantra. But I think it's a safe group where you can actually be open and talk about exactly what we're talking about over here. It's like, hey, I've never done live streaming, right? What's different? And but also, I think to your point, I think we need a support system out there, right? People who are, and again, for me, being in the valley and being in tech, having this mostly non-tech group, people all over the world, gives me the perspective that I sorely lacked up until 2 years ago, right? So that aspect of it is so valuable. I think one more thing from so Alan just commented. So I'm just thanks Alan for being here and then joining us. So clearly there is resonance over here, and you talked about like how do you kind of get past that initial phase and needing to have that support group to be able to kind of be there with you. The aspects of cooling down, again, this is my last thing to you, which I think is hard for people to do, and I ask this of every one of my guests, is whether it's you're a solopreneur trying something, whether it's you're a startup founder, whatever it is, right? It's hard to turn off and walk away, right? So for people, it's like they hang on to certain things for too long, and the pandemic, if it's taught us one thing, which is you have to be turning on the next stuff, right? You don't know what's going to. One of my future guests is broadcast TV and media person who's now into farming.
I love that.
And so so again, the point is you don't want to burn out, but and one way to not burn out is to turn off, or at least put things on the back burner, which is hard to do, right? For people like you and me, it's like, or lots of people out there. So what tips do you have? It's like, hey, how do you turn off, put in the back burner, turn something off completely, and then trying to turn the heat on other things that you want to pivot towards?
Yeah, I want to share the moment. That's something I'm actively working on. So if you guys have great advice, I'd love to see them in the comments because I ought to learn from some other folks as well. I think with me, I love what I do so much with my clients, either in a group process where I work with a lot of the clients one-on-one to help them define and help them to avoid delay to put their products out there, whether it's courses, content, podcasts, YouTube videos. I'm so passionate. So I have so many excuses to not stop working.
Yeah.
And I really, in retrospect, during the pandemic, I feel like I feel a bit on fire too, because my mom, who came to visit me from China, obviously is stuck here. So she's taking care of everything, like from laundry, cooking. I'm very spoiled. So I have even more focus on
Hmm.
YouTube, on content creation. Um, but I gotta say, sometimes you just have to go cold turkey. I don't have children. I think people with children somehow have that excuse. They do a much better job to say, I decided after 5 p.m., 6 p.m., it's family time. That's it. My kids want to play with me, and I do that. And I don't have that in my life. So it's really easy for me to say, I love creating YouTube videos, and my camera's right here, ready to go. I want to go. And just you gotta set boundaries. And for me, another thing, if anybody can relate to this, when I started my documentary, I knew that was so important to me in 2018. I got the funding, I got everything. The only way for me to do a documentary on the road is I have to quit and leave all
Hmm.
the consulting jobs behind. And at the time I was making $20,000 a month. So for the time I'll be planning and knowing that after that it'll be hard for me to come back into consulting. I line up for the team. I line up the team. I had all my guests. I just got to go. And it was so liberating to
Hmm.
my clients are like, that's so cool. We'll talk about it when you get back. And I came back and I found all new set of clients, really focusing on the things I wanted to do. Some related to documentary, some are not. No regrets. And for me, that was so important. Otherwise, I couldn't walk away from the money. I'm not more spiritual than anybody else. So yeah, those are my stories.
Wow, yeah, I know. You're right. Sometimes we handcuff ourselves to, hey, I'll get there tomorrow, but like we've seen, tomorrow
Mhm.
may never come. So we really don't know how much time that we have, right? So again, thanks for sharing your journey. And like you mentioned, you and I met 2 years ago at a physical conference, and
Yeah.
those still exist, right? Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and then and then I still want to applaud you for putting those videos out. It gave me permission to experiment, and here I am talking to the guru. Thanks for your time, and keep inspiring.
Thank you so much, Ashton. Thanks so much for having me and for everybody who's watching.
Thank you, and thanks to people for the comments. And feel free to continue the conversation way after the live stream has ended, and reach out to Faye and me for
Yeah,
any
tag
future.
us and we'll answer the questions.
Well, done. Thanks, Faye.